And welcome back to another video. I am Ramona. This is the Smell of Logic channel where we read Reddit stories and stuff like that. True stories, not so true stories, funny stories, serious stories, paranormal, supernatural, you name it. We're just kind of everywhere right now. Because you gotta have variety in life. That's pretty much what I think. Anyway, if you're enjoying any of my little videos, go check out another one. There's plenty on the channel. And let's just get into this one. This one is more amusing work stories, funny colleagues, that kind of thing. My favorite was a phone call with a colleague that ended with him saying, "Okay, sounds good. Love you. Bye." I gave him crap about it for every couple of months, and he still denies it to this day. I think we've all done stupid things like that sometimes, yeah. I asked a coworker to send a support line number to a remote branch. He had the number stored in his phone. Later, the branch called, flustered, explained that the number must be wrong. We called it and were greeted by a sexy female voice wanting to get dirty with us. I heard some sex hotlines by old support phone numbers to trick people into business. I guess that's one way to get, new customers. Yeah. There are a lot of There are lots of small funny things that have happened at the place where I work now. The following isn't laugh out loud funny, really, but it is one of my favorites and says a lot about the area where I live. A crusty old mountain man came into my work. He was wearing mud-stained camos, big-ass work boots, and a huge duster jacket. He must have been at least 6'6", swarthy and reeking of cigarettes and marijuana. I swear his beard had twigs in it. My good fortune that day was helping people at the counter. He was looking for records that would show that his grandfather owned a bunch of property around 80 years ago. I spent probably 45 minutes looking for deed references and tax records helping him out. And the whole time he is telling me about his honeybees, his gardening projects, his days in the Hells Angels, his time in prison, etc. It's kind of hard to follow, which he acknowledged and attributed to his heavy use of psychedelics and speed back in the day. Since I was sporting a massive red beard at the time, I think he saw me as a kindred spirit in some way. Anyway, after I did my best and we found some good leads on his family history and his grandfather's land holdings, he gave me a huge grin and thanked me and started to leave. Just as he reached the threshold of the office, he did a quick 180 and said to me, "Man, you were so nice. I got a little something special for you." He reaches into his inside jacket pocket, and pulls out a little brown lunch bag and sets it on the counter. Did I mention this man reeked of marijuana? I mean, seriously, I thought I was in a curing shed when I stood there next to him. He waves and rushes out of the office, and off into the wilds from whence he came. I'm a little apprehensive about the mysterious bag of some special he left for me on the counter. Is it pot? The bag certainly smelled like pot. I thought to myself, damn it, why couldn't he have given this to me when I wasn't working? My co-workers are looking at me and at the bag, egging me on to check what it was. My boss walks by and says, "I bet you it's a bunch of pot." And she laughs. I ask her what happens if it is, and she tells me we'll have to call the sheriff. I was bummed, not only because I might be missing out on free pot, but that I would have to talk to the sheriff about this cool old guy and maybe get him in trouble. I carefully grab the bag, and I empty the contents onto my desk with all eyes on me. Out drops a brick wrapped in plastic with a little cardstock handwritten label on it that reads, "Be kind baklava." Turns out it was homemade with honey from this guy's honeybee hives, and that he runs an apiary up in the mountains near where I live. It is also the best tasting baklava I've ever tasted. I found him later at a farmer's market and thanked him for the great treat, and still buy honey from him. See, it's a very sweet story. That's so cute. Nobody ever gives me stuff like that at work. I got some old purse candy one time from a lady. It's the best I've ever gotten. I was working at Blockbuster in high school. There was this one 40-year-old creeper, a really smelly guy who would come in and hit on all the girls that worked there. So he comes in late one night, and I'm going to be nice and take one of the girls so they don't have to check him out. As I'm checking him out, I look up and notice that he has the pin with the curly cord, if that's so you can't steal it, in his mouth. Not just nibbling on it either, like half the pin and some of the cord in there. And there was a puddle of drool below his face where he can't make the seal around the pin, and his saliva is just dripping out. I look at him and say, "What the hell are you doing? You know that at least 100 people a day and their kids handle that thing." He replies, "Sorry, I just really horny today." He says this to a 16, 17-year-old guy. I am really just stunned and don't know what to even say. To this day, I'm not sure there is even a proper response to that. I put his movies on the other side of the metal detector and tell him to put his money on the counter so I can pick it up with a paper towel and get him out of the store. That's just nasty. Oh my God. I used to work at Kmart in the clothing section. One day I went into the dressing room to find that somebody had defecated on the bench that you're supposed to sit on to put shoes on. While I'm cleaning it up, some old lady comes in to pick up clothes that she had left in there and later decided she wanted to buy. I asked her if she had made the mess, and she denied it. Actually, it isn't funny. Even now, it kind of pisses me off. No, it's not really funny at all because somebody had to clean that up. When I worked at Papa Do's, every other week, I'd have this one guy come in. He was in a motorized wheelchair, wearing a red bandana, various gaudy shirts, clown shoes, and he'd bring his dog, who sports a similar red bandana, and also some badass shades. Dude was freaking awesome. Well, see, that's not really a coworker story. So, I used to work at this dorky 20-something, with this dorky 20-something, let's call him Jay, in the office of a factory where I was a designer. He wasn't really that smart and was pretty immature, just immature enough to think he was smart. I preferred peace and quiet, but he would always turn on his radio in the morning to a local morning show. He would occasionally call in to them to discuss something that they were talking about. After a few months of this, I began calling in or emailing them as well. I met the host and her producer a couple of times when we were out at the events, and they were pretty familiar with each other. She even met my wife once. I would often prank Jay and let her know the results, which she would immediately share with her listeners. He was an excellent foil and would call her up later and pout about it. Needless to say, we didn't have a very high opinion of Jay. This went on for about a year before he finally caught on that he wasn't well liked by anybody involved. He made one last long ranting email and then stopped listening to the show. So I started streaming it. I had called in to talk to the host about it a couple of days later on the air, and we got on the subject of how dorky he was. I made a comment to the effect that I had no idea how he was married to such a cute girl. The host, unaware of his marriage, screamed, "What? He's married? I thought he was gay," live on radio. He happened to be listening and was none too happy about it. He quit about a week later, but I was left for it weeks afterwards. It's not very cool, though, honestly. I mean, that one's kind of taking things a little too far. Yeah. Okay, I've got another one in here, but this one is worth its own box. So I worked at a party store while I was getting some certificates and such. This middle-aged black woman comes in about twice a week to play her numbers. She was about 35 and was fun to joke around with. So one day she's playing her numbers and she starts joking about how I wanted her and such. So I joked back something to the tune of how I totally did. She was like, "Please, you couldn't handle this." I told her she was totally my type. "Yeah, whatever, I'm too much for you." The next 3 lines were awesome. "You kidding? I like my women like I like my coffee." Laughing. "Oh, yeah, how's that?" "Cold, black, and bitter." I got slapped, but in fun. We joked for a few more minutes, and then she went on her way. Still came in every week, so it must not have been too offensive. One more, and I swear I'm done. I caught a guy stealing candy bars while cashing his check. Brought his money out just in time for the cops to show up. Counted it back, and he turned around to meet face to face with the cop. Had them check his pockets, and they found what he stole. Cuffed him, and he started to drag him out. He was talking about how he didn't do anything, not likely, as it was on camera, and how he was going to kick my ass. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Not going anywhere for a while? Try a Snickers," which I had sunglasses on for that one. Sadly, that was the coolest I've ever been. I worked at Red Robin, and we were always hiring new, pretty 18-year-old hostesses. We would tell them that they were on wave duty and say their job was to go stand outside the restaurant and wave at the cars passing by. Then we would laugh as they stood outside smiling at waving and all the cars. We would also send to the restaurant next door to see if they had any additional ice mix. That only worked once. When I worked at a large hardware store chain, there was a cop always standing at the front door. He was a working service desk. I was working service desk, which is pretty much where the cop stood. He always had a bulletproof vest on and was a pretty big guy. Apparently, someone was trying to steal something, and the loss protection guy was following him out and signaled to the cop that he might need some help. The cop walked out of the door after the guy who had started to speed up. He turned around and saw the cop and loss protection guy following him and started to run. The cop then yelled in the most pants-crappingly intimidating voice, "Don't effing move!" This was in the middle of a summer's day, and it was packed. The entire store stopped what they were doing and was completely silent, except for the thief, who started whimpering and stopped dead in his tracks. The cop then grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, dragged him into the camera room while he was crying, saying, I'm sorry, please don't hurt me. It was amazing. My best story is that I placed a very small piece of Scotch tape over the microphone of a co-worker's phone. Too small to easily notice. Patent pending. Her call to facilities for help was priceless. Even though her office door was closed, we could hear her screaming, Hello, hello, my phone is broken. No, my phone is broken. It's not working. It took her about 5 minutes to catch on. I almost died that day. It was so hard to breathe. Second best was a remote-controlled fart machine. Waited until my colleague initiated an internal conference call in a fairly formal consulting environment and let the gas fly. The machine was well hidden under her desk, and all she could do was apologize and try to laugh it off. It was very funny. While working in a coffee shop a few years back, I witnessed a furious Russian man in his early 30s violently baseball pitch a 20-ounce cup of hot water at my coworker who had just rang up his transaction. After the fact, he casually walked outside and joined his friends for a cigarette. I've got a few. 1. Started work at a fast food place and they told me to water the plants in the lobby. All the plants were fake. 2. A developer that was doing work for our company told me the story of him doing a presentation of their software, projected into a big screen, and he didn't realize it until after he entered his password that they had not masked it. His password was pussy. 3. Trying to get a better job within my company, I would take the prerequisite tests on the off chance that I would pass one. I'm pretty good at these stupid tests. This one was for a maintenance tech in a clean room environment, which I knew nothing about. The test monitor starts getting her supplies out and her stopwatch starts beeping. She's pushing all the buttons but can't figure it out how to turn it off. I say, try hitting it. She does, and it stops beeping. So I say, do I get the job or what? I didn't. I have left Reddit for Velt due to years of administrative mismanagement and preferential treatment for certain subreddits and users holding certain political and ideological views. The situation has gotten especially worse since the appointment of Ellen Pao as CEO, culminated in the seemingly unjustified hearings of